compared to his older age. And you can see clearly how his maxilla is resorbing, and as it resorbs, his teeth become flared out. But what's more important is what's going around his eye. His corrugators have hypertrophy. His eyelid becomes longer because the floor of the orbit is bottoming down. So that's why we get that hollowness, is the eyelid is elongating. So my uncle sent me this. Filler injections can cause blindness and can make your nose fall off, from the all-reputable Globe magazine. And it is true. Patients have heard about it. We know about it, but we still do it, and our patients still want it. So these are some different ways that these emboli can cause problems. So they can go through the supratrochlear, back up through the ophthalmic, through the central retinal into the globe. Or it can do the same thing and then end up in the choroidal vessels behind the eye, and this can cause blindness. Filler can also go down into a muscular artery, causing ophthalmoplegia, or it can slide all the way back into the ophthalmic artery and cause a panophthalmoplegia. So we have to know how to handle this with hyaluronidase. The consensus paper says inject 300 units, wait half an hour and inject another 300 units. Katie Blaisney's paper said there are 98 cases of blindness in the world literature. I agree with you, Francisco. These cases in the tear trough, I do not think were caused by actual injection on the tear trough. They're probably in the angular artery, the infraorbital, or the zygomaticofacial. The paper by Hayre's a neuro-ophthalmologist who did studies in monkeys where he clamped off the optic nerve with the artery and showed that you have about 90 minutes to save that retina from ischemia. So do not inject in your office without hyaluronidase. De Lorenzo showed us that the hyaluronidase can penetrate vessel walls. That's why there's a theory that it may help with a retrobulbar injection. Video one. There it goes. There's no clear case that this inject 0.1 or less. Well, we wanted to know what a true small aliquot was. So we took cadavers, we had them filled with latex, cut out the arteries from the supratrochlear area to the apex of the orbit, and measured their volume by water displacement. And what we found with these arteries was the average volume was less than 0.1. The average was 0.085, and our smallest was 0.04. This is published in Aesthetic Surgery Journal. So what I always preach to my residents and fellows learning to inject is put in 1/3 of a tenth, move the tip of your needle. 1/3 of a tenth, change your position just a little bit. So you're never injecting too much at any one point in time in one area. And also understand that hyaluronidase, when you do dissolve filler for patients, the amount of BDD cross-linking determines how easy or difficult it can be to dissolve. Restylane has the least amount of BDDE cross-link, so it will break up very easily. Bellatero, in our study, had more cross-links, and we could barely get it to dissolve. So when you're taking filler out of patients' faces for one reason or another, you may need more than one round of injections of hyaluronidase. And also we noticed that for 0.1 for each tenth of a cc, it took about 30 units of hyaluronidase. And here's a patient getting an injection and nothing exciting there. Patient comes in, wants a bleph on one side. I said, don't quite feel comfortable with this. Talk to her some more. Oh yes, I had Restylane injected in my upper eyelid on the left only 6 years ago. So what did? We gave her some hyaluronidase. We could see that one eye was a little lower than the other, and nobody's symmetrical. That middle picture is what she looked like after the hyaluronidase. Boom, dissolved all of that Restylane that had been in her upper eyelid for 6 to 7 years. And of course she was hollow and wanted more filler put back in, so we did that for her and she was happy. So filler rheology. So many things that we talk about in vitro is different than in vivo, and we're thankful to Sundaram and Kasuta for their papers, and this is the He paper. But what I was most interested in for tear troughs, because we see the problems with, is how much water affinity they have, the hydrophilicity, because it's very important with injecting around the eyes. So we took 12 fillers at Duke. We took and put buffered saline on top of them and let them sit for 1 month at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, in that range, similar to the temperature of the body in your skin, in your face. We centrifuged it for 12 minutes, and then we placed a dot of dye to see the water fluid level, and this is what we saw. It worked out perfectly brilliantly. Only one of them didn't come out exactly like what we were hoping to see, and that we saw that all of the Nasha fillers, these are the Nashas. Silk was our only outlier. We have to repeat that. Refine and define. All these went exactly with Galderma's data on file. The refine and define are very hydrophilic, as you know, the highlight.
But we need to give a little bit more support to get it as surgery would do, like lifted and then contoured. So I just marked the areas that I would treat for periorbital treatment, which would be this point here that Francesca showed how to find that area. So you draw a line in between the canthus and the corner of the mouth, mid ala, mid tragus, bisectrus to 90 degrees, and you get there. So this is a lifting point for me for periorbital. If you have a mild aging, I would go for a back up also, not only this one, not to fuel it too much. So I'll put 0.2 and 0.2. And if you want to, of course, design the cheek a little, you can use those 2 points that are also lifting points. Those blue points are contouring points. So what I expect to get from this is, as soon as I lifted the eye a little bit, I will contour it again as in a round shape, and then I will use this pink area here to smooth the transition. As we couldn't, I was supposed to have a non-ablative fractionated laser here to use on top of that to show on how do I resurface this elastotic skin. As I don't have, I just brought some liquid high hyaluronic acid that we can put very superficial in those wrinkles like around here. So let's start. She's already numbed. What I have here and what I start with is a high G, I already did. So I start below. And I start very superficial, okay? Mainly across all the vessels that are coming. The angular is right here, more or less, tortuous, and then we have all the other vessels coming and arteries coming in this direction or this direction. So I'm superficial here. Then when I come to the zygomatic arch that is here, I dive with my cannula to be below the SUF, and I'm already in the point, and I'm going to put 0.2 slowly. I'm not just pressing with my finger, I'm just feeling if the filler is coming out of my cannula. This is another way that you can use for a safety injection. So we have 0.2 in that point, and I'm going to try to show, comparing both sides, what you can get. So, could you look here a little bit? So you see how the height is already a little bit different. Of course, she's mild, so I would have to support it a little bit more. So I will put 0.2, same way. Superficial, dive below the lateral temporal pad here. And in women, you see the zygomatic arch in her has this width, this height. Normally in men, I go right in the middle. For women, I like to go on the superior border. So then I'm going to put 0.2. This product I'm using is a high G product, very moldable one. And I'm going to put back here 0.1. So that comes half a syringe so that I can use in both sides. So this is what we get, okay, with 0.5 ml. This is, I'm using Voluma from Allergan. I could do the whole perioral orbital with the same product. I just recently have been using more moderate G prime to do contouring, because sometimes you don't have 3 syringes to use, like a very fine, a moderate one, and a bigger G prime, a high G prime. So if you want to use just 2 products, you could use like a high G prime and a moderate one. But if I would do like smoothing transitions with this one, which is a moderate one, I'm using Vollift. So I would have to put very, very small liquids or fanning technique to reduce even the projection. So here it's important, the foramen is more or less here at this height, so I have to be very superficial. Then when I pass the height of the foramen, more or less in this blue dot, I will dive below the SUF, protect the orbital rim with my finger. And I will put a very small drop right in the orbital rim. Go down, you see 3 points, different amounts. I will put half, 1 trace, and then lower, right in this blue dot, I will put 0.1. This is what we get after the first contouring. And then I'm going to the hollowness that she has here to make it a little bit more rounder. Superficial, superficial, then here, dye. Go to the lateral side of the orbit. .1. And then towards the nasolabial groove, 0.05. So actually I use 1 cc, half high G prime, half moderate G prime, and this is what I got. And what I like to do, it is not a 1 cc session. What I like to do is that I come exactly at the same point of where I filled from the side, below the orbicularis. How do I know I'm below? And what I like also to do sometimes with people like her that has a lot of wrinkles in this area, the lateral orbit, is this, which you can get after the whole treatment. As we don't have any lasers or technology, what I would like to do is, as she has a very elastotic skin, to use a very liquid filler with a 32 gauge needle, very thin, just go very superficial and do small drops. I really like to use microneedling for that. See that I'm doing small drops, micro droplets, this size more or less. Everything we did to now was structure and under the skin. Now we're treating skin mainly.
Untuk hydrate kulit.
I would happily use non-fractionated, non-ablative laser, or even a CO2 on her, because she has a very good, open your eyes, tarsen. She's not lax in the tarsen. And tension. She has a good tension in the tarsen and horizontal support. I think the needling thing is very interesting. Because we know that we are creating some kind of inflammation, and how good it is to bring new fibroblasts and new collagen. So let's see what we could get. This is her eye look up. You see how lifted and round it is, much more rejuvenated. Of course, you can put toxin, other things to enhance the upper eyelid,